Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing great.
You now work for the police department, but maybe you can inform us about how long you've worked for the city and maybe how long you worked with animal services in general.
I've been with the city for almost 11 years.
Mhm.
I came over from the county where I was working at their animal shelter, and so I moved over to managing the City of Salinas Animal Shelter. In 2015, I was promoted to the police department where I oversee all of the civilian staff, some of the administrative duties, the budget,
Yeah.
and so I've been there, and also animal services, still doing
Didn't get
that.
away from that, right?
No, the critters came with me, and so I've been at the police department as the police services administrator since then.
That sounds like a big job.
Yes, yes.
I think the police department's our largest department, so as varied as it is, it includes animal services.
Yes.
So, when you started with animal services in the city, how large, what can you tell us a little bit about the services, how many animals you would house or help during the year, kind of some numbers that might be of interest to our viewing audience.
Yeah, sure. So our shelter is the second shelter on Hitchcock Road, right down the street from the county facility. And we can hold about 150 animals, dogs, cats, others, meaning rabbits, guinea pigs, some of that. And over the years, we've varied between 3,000 to almost up to 5,000 at one point animals.
Wow.
Last year we brought in about 3,500 animals. Most of those primarily from City of Salinas. We have a small contract with the City of Marina, but primarily mostly City of Salinas animals. Dogs, cats, and then like I said, some of the other smaller animals that we get. Surprisingly though, about 150 rabbits show up.
Really?
That we care for as well. And so the services we provide, we're required to have a dog licensing program, so that's a big part of what we do. All dogs are required to have a rabies vaccine and a city dog license, so we have that program. We offer field services, so we have 2 animal control officers that patrol the city through the week, responding to stray dogs, injured animals, a lot of bite quarantines, unfortunately. Animals that bite, we're required to follow up on that, and then other duties kind of as they're flagged down. And then our shelter staff care for the animals. They assess them, whether they're going to go to adoption or so forth. Our front office staff is a small but mighty team that does all the adoptions, return to owners, handles the phone calls, and all of those office-related duties in addition to the animals.
Right. Do you take care of more dogs and cats than rabbits and other animals, or how do the numbers run there?
It's been an interesting shift. We used to take in more cats than dogs.
Oh.
And in the last, 3 or 4 years, we actually now see more dogs than cats. Those are our 2 big categories. Our other categories tend to be about 150, 200 a year. So we really run probably 52% are dogs at this point. We get a lot of little dogs in Salinas, little Chihuahuas.
Runt of the litter, or just the kind of breeds that you end up, taking care of?
A lot of Chihuahuas.
Okay.
Little brown Chihuahuas are kind of the Salinas special. Poodle mixes seem to be becoming more popular. Terrier, think Benji style. We see a lot of Huskies now. I've been told we can thank Game of Thrones for that. We used to see a Husky every other month or so, and we probably have a couple at any given time right now.
That's amazing, especially here in Salinas.
Yes, and they're not easy breeds. They're known escape artists, and they tend to have their one person, and so that's been an interesting shift. Like Dalmatians used to be with 101 Dalmatians, or but little dogs are our trend.
Right. So do you have a program in terms of trying to sort of make sure that these animals are taken care of, they're adopted in some way? If you have more little dogs? Or is there a special program for that? What kind of partners you might have? You said you're not far away from the county shelter as well, and I know the SPCA is down the road a little bit, but not too far away either.
Right. We work with them when we can. We actually we kind of run some programs and adoption programs kind of as needed. So when we have a lot of adoption or small dogs and adoptions, we may reduce our adoption fees to try to incentivize people to come in and adopt. We have some really good partners with rescue agencies, all up into California, up Northern California, even some into Oregon and Washington. And so we'll partner with the county shelter and a rescue group called Animal Friends Rescue Project. They have a transport program. So we'll work with our partners up north, and we'll send van loads, we call it a transport, up to those agencies we partner with who don't seem to get in little dogs like we do. So we do those probably every other month. Some months, especially in the summer when it's busy and the weather is good and we can travel up there, we'll transport animals up to those. And we do have rescue groups. Any breed has a rescue group. You have a boxer, there's a boxer rescue. You have a Labrador, there's a lab rescue.
Like cars.
Exactly. Yeah, folks that like Porsche, there's a Porsche club.
Right.
Same thing for animals. And so when we get in some of those specific breeds, we have partners with rescue groups that will take those. But for the when we get our numbers of little dogs start to build up, then we'll use our network with those folks to help
Is
save
there a
them.
demand for, say, the little dogs, the Chihuahuas, the Salinas Specials, if you will?
There tends to be. I think areas that are more rural that get bigger dogs don't get the little dogs. And so those seem to be the ones that will answer the phone and say, yeah, we'll take some Chihuahuas. Southern California is inundated as well with little Chihuahuas, so we don't tend to send them or transfer south.
Right.
But our partners in Oregon and Washington, we've been really successful, and they keep us updated when they get adopted. So that's nice to know that it wasn't working out with us, but we were able to facilitate that adoption elsewhere.
So what are the changes you've seen in the 11 plus years you've been doing this with the city, at least, in terms of animal shelter, adoption programs, the number of animals you take care of? Can you give us some ideas of trending? What are the challenges? Obviously it must be somewhat different than it was 11 years ago.
Yes, it is. It's interesting that question. For municipal shelters, it's always different than nonprofits because municipals are usually have fewer resources, more constraints. Nonprofits, kind of have the flexibility to do some different, typically out of the box things. But what I've noticed is a trend for now municipal shelters to say, hey, we don't have to stay in our little box. We can do the fun things too. We can do the cool things too, just like the other groups. And I think as municipal shelters, we need to do that. We can't just say, oh, we're a government shelter. We can't do that. That doesn't save lives. It doesn't make a difference in the community. And so some of the things that we've tried doing over the years has been because of that. It's, we have been limited on resources, especially staffing, and but we've done some really cool things, such as, we have a couple events a year.
Okay, what are those?
For example, we just had our Plans for Paws, where we have a partner with Cicada Seed here locally in Salinas, and after they have their big show with all their plants, which they used to toss, they provide them to us and we sell them. And we raise money to help our spay-neuter efforts in the community to help reduce that population. And so that's a partnership that we value, and that's been a great partnership. And we have some other, our Halloween event where we basically dress up and celebrate Halloween, but that's become a tradition just to network with the community. And so some of those, and working towards with our feral cat program, is to typically the stuck in the box solution with feral cats was you bring them in, we euthanize them. You bring them in, we euthanize them, and it's this continual cycle. Shelters now we're thinking, well, if we can put them in the community fixed, they're utilizing resources. Perhaps that will also
Right.
slow the population growth. So we've tried various things like that, just like other communities have, and it seems to be helping. There's, obviously some other issues when people continue to feed a lot, but just being able to try different things,
Yes.
and because communities change, times change,
Right.
solutions have to change. Otherwise, you keep getting the same result.
Right.
And so there's definitely more of an openness to try new things within shelters, especially the government shelters.
So how do you work with the SPCA and the county animal services? You must talk a lot. I'm not sure that the dogs and the cats know the difference between the jurisdictions, but obviously there must be some partnerships that are formed specifically because of the closeness and the populations are very similar that you're taking care of.
Yeah, our populations are very similar, and sometimes it's difficult, and we try not to ping pong people between them, and so we've gotten a lot better in our communication.
Right.
We work with all three of us work pretty well together on a regular basis. My staff will call the county staff if a question, or the SPCA, or sometimes we'll have a question, and vice versa. And so there's a lot of that kind of constant day-to-day communication between staff. And that helps because what's going on with them might be going on with us. We have an issue that came up. I know recently there's been canine influenza.
Ooh.
And San Jose got hit with it really hard, and so
Right.
all the shelters kind of around started asking, hey, do you have it? And so the three of us, our shelter director, started talking to say, hey, have you guys seen it? What are you guys doing? What could we do? And so sharing that, because dogs get flu just like folks do, and it can be pretty debilitating. And to have it go through a kennel facility like a shelter,
Right.
it can be detrimental. Adoptions stop, basically, all things stop, so that you don't spread that. And so that was a good kind of an example of the networking we did of seeing what everybody's doing and,
Right.
and basically having this kind of the same stance and a plan of attack.
Right. So in terms of, some of the care you mentioned, health, just like the flu, do you have access to veterinarians and other medical specialists that, especially in, I would say, animal medicine?
Absolutely. We don't have a vet on staff, but we have a vet that comes in and does rounds. We call it our shelter rounds. And so our vet comes in twice a week to go through the shelter. We keep a list of animals we need her to look at. And she also helps with any special testing we need that we can do some testing for worms or mites or some small testings like that. When we need I guess more invasive veterinary care, a bigger injury, then we contract with several veterinarians in Salinas for that service.
Do you have a lot of visitors daily for, looking at the shelter and seeing what might be available in terms of a family pet of some kind? How often does that happen at the city shelter?
We're pretty busy. Fortunately, there's, we open at 12 o'clock Tuesday through Saturday, and a lot of times there's people waiting out front at 12 o'clock. And a lot of times at 5 o'clock, it's okay, we can help you, but we got to get going.
Right.
And a lot of times these days, the more awareness we have, the busier we are. It's a happening place. And so, yeah, it's busy on a regular basis.
So are people more interested in dogs than they are cats?
Yeah, our dog adoptions is definitely more than cats. I'm trying to think of the numbers, but not too bad. A lot of people like to adopt 2 cats, especially during kitten season. So we call them twofers. So we'll adopt a 2-for-1, to get the kittens out. Rabbits are hard to adopt, as they're the third most common animal in animal shelters and the hardest to adopt. People don't know that you can have a rabbit like a cat and litter box train it and have it as an indoor pet, and you just have to put everything away because they will eat the baseboards off your walls. They can be destructive because their teeth are always growing.
Right.
So we network with rabbit rescues, and so a lot of times that's where our rabbits go to rescue groups that know how to care for rabbits, and screen for adopters better and have people coming to them directly because they want a rabbit. And rabbits can be paired, but it's kind of, they're picky. So you can't just put two rabbits together. And so Animal Friends Rescue Project has a Rabbits Rock. And so typically when we get a rabbit in, we'll call Rabbits Rock and have them come assess the rabbit, and then we'll work
Interesting.
together.
Wow, I didn't know that was that involved with rabbits.
Yeah, no, neither did I until I started working here in Salinas.
So what's a typical family look like? I mean, when they want to come adopt a dog, you know, run us kind of through the process. They might come in a Tuesday at 12 o'clock. They walk around the shelter. You show them different kinds of animals, dogs and cats, and then they see something they like. Then they want to adopt. How's the process from that point on handled?
Well, we have a brief application that we'll ask them to fill out just so we can get some basic information. We want to know, you know, especially if they're adopting a dog, you know, where's it going to live? How long is it going to be left alone? You know, are there children, you know, living in the home? Do they know kind of basic laws, pets not riding in the back of a truck, leash laws, you know, those things. And from that, we'll have a conversation based on the pet they're interested in. For example, if they're looking at an 8-week-old puppy, Chihuahua puppy, who's, you know, this big, but they've stated that they want an outdoor-only dog, then that might be something that we have a conversation, say that's probably not most suitable for this dog. However, perhaps there's another animal. Of course, we always want all the animals to be in the home with the person, but there are some dogs in some instances where you can have a very suitable home that's not inside. And so there are very good outside-only homes, and we get a lot of dogs that have never been inside. And so we try to match things up like that. So once they decide it's a go, we're going to do this, we will, if they have current dogs in the household, we will do a brief introduction and ask them to bring that dog to us so that we can gauge if the dogs may get along. And that's because not all dogs like everybody they meet, just like us. And so we're just trying to gauge, is there some initial aggression maybe that makes it is a red flag. Typically, it works out fine. So we go through that. By law, the animals have to be spayed or neutered before they can go into their home. We don't do that before we put them on the adoption floor because we don't know that they'll all get adopted. And so, but before they pick them up from us, we will take them to the vet to have them spayed or neutered, and then the adopters will pick them up from the vet. So they do leave spayed and neutered already. They'll have their vaccines, their microchip. If they live in Salinas, they'll have their dog license. So they'll have all of that, as well as a nice folder filled with all kinds of pet information that we can kind of help make the adoption successful.
Normally, what does the time period it takes? Is that a day, part of a day, couple days before all that gets happened and the animal actually permanent leaves and somebody's home that's suitable?
It depends on the day. We have surgeries only a couple days a week. So for example, if we have a surgery on a Thursday, and the adoption's Tuesday, the animal stays with us until it has that surgery date. So ideally, if we had our own clinic on site, hint, hint, then they would just the next day go into the clinic, get fixed, and go home the next day. So with the vets we work at, we have kind of staggered appointments that we can take them to, so that the goal is to hold them as little as possible.
So if you find or are called to an unusual animal, say a reptile or a snake, then what's the process and procedure there that the shelter goes through?
Typically, we would call the SPCA Wildlife Department if it's an animal that's considered wildlife. Several years ago, we had a bobcat in a tree out in South Salinas. And so, we don't do bobcats, but the SPCA's Wildlife Department is very quick to respond. We actually had a deer from Fort Ord that came into the city at one point and was just running amok. And all we could do was just kind of follow it and escort it back outside the city, but the SPCA's Wildlife Department helped, and I think for that one we had to call Fish and Game too to kind of say, okay, this is really big. And so that's part of those partnerships and contacts we have with those other agencies.
And you say you have 2 animal technicians working daily to help enforce the animal code?
Yeah,
if you
2
will?
animal control officers, yes, that they patrol the city Monday through Friday.
Mhm. And they both have vehicles, and they're sort of on call, right?
We're on call Monday through Thursday, so
Okay.
Friday night through Sunday we don't have anybody on call
Mhm.
because that's just with 2 people you can't do 7 days a week.
Right. So what does a citizen, a resident of Salinas do to make sure they have an animal issue, say a dog?
Mhm.
Maybe there's a owner someplace. Sometimes they have a tag, sometimes they don't. So the animal technician, picks up the dog, for example, then what happens?
Well, they'll bring it to the shelter typically, and we'll scan it for microchip. Hopefully they have a microchip.
Okay.
That's returned millions of animals. And I know in Salinas, for cats, if your cat has a microchip, chances are you have a good chance that it'll get returned. Most of the cats we return to their owners it's because they have a microchip.
Right.
So I can't stress that enough. But we'll check for any form of ID, microchip, tag with ID. Sometimes we even recognize them. We're like, you've been here before. So, and then we always try to make contact with the owner. If with our systems in place, we can either mail a 10-day letter. We have the capability to instant text. Within 10 minutes of an animal coming in, if we have the person's email address, it'll generate an email saying your dog is here.
Wow.
So we really try using technology to get that word out there. Our microchip company that we use, Found Animals, can also, when we activate it, start texting them to the point of making sure they answer with what information they have as well. And so that's our goal: is we need the owner to come and get the animal. If for some reason we can't get a hold of them, then we put a longer hold time on them
Okay.
to allow the owner more time. Our current holding time is only 72 hours right now for animals with no ID. So that's a dog comes in on Tuesday,
Great.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are those 72 hours. By Saturday, it could be on the adoption floor. So it's critical for folks to come looking as soon as they find that their pet is missing. Once it goes through those holding times and nobody comes to claim it, then we evaluate it to see, can it go up for adoption? If it can't go up for adoption, is it a candidate for a rescue agency to come and get it? And if that's not the case, then some animals are selected for euthanasia.
Wow. You mentioned a couple events, so it looks like you just had Plans for Paws, and then the next one's coming up in a few months, not too far away, not too far, would be the Halloween, right, event. Are there more events, Cindy, that will be planned to help raise some funds or raise the awareness for, people to come and adopt and, and help support the shelter in some fashion?
We have smaller events throughout the year, kind of based on if we're having an adoption special or if something comes up, we'll sometimes throw a party with our volunteers. All of our events are planned primarily by volunteers and staff. And so it kind of depended on what our resources are. One thing, and we specifically don't host an event in the month of July, and that's usually because that's a really busy month for us. That's usually, there's the 4th of July holiday that's really big, and so we purposely don't do anything there because that's usually our fullest time, is in the middle of the summer vacation.
Right. It must be a set of problems with 4th of July because animals don't necessarily like the fireworks. And the noise and the other issues it might cause. So is that your busiest day of the year or at 4th of July or the day before, the day after?
I think 4th of July is any shelter employee's worst nightmare. And it's not usually days. These days it's weeks.
Really?
They start weeks before and it goes weeks after, and we'll start to see an uptick in our impounds probably 2 to 3 weeks before the July 4th. We'll change our hours around whatever that weekend is before July 4th. We'll stay open. We've added extra days. We've left our night kennels left open. We've had animal control on staff for the weekends just for that. Yeah, you can explain to your pet, it's okay. It's just a firework. They don't understand that, and they will go through drastic measures
Right.
to escape.
Right.
And so we always hope that people that have pets will understand that. It's hard though to predict if your neighbors 2 weeks before 4th of July are
Right.
going to set off fireworks.
Right.
And so that's
Right.
difficult.
When the city banned Safe and Sane, was it a little bit easier on the shelter, or did that make a difference at all? Because one of the theories behind banning Safe and Sane is then you know when the illegals are happening, because the safe ones are banned. So whatever is happening must be legal.
I don't know that pets know the difference.
Okay.
They're just still loud noises. People
Right.
are partying, and so they may not be those extreme big booms. But I know, when my own family has done the Safe and Sane, my dog's still hiding under the bed. I don't know that we saw necessarily a difference, just because to them, they don't know the difference. It's still a loud
Right.
noise.
So this is another area. Is this a problem where you see dogs just sort of running by themselves? You see a lot of cats running, and it's hard to catch the cat. But a dog running down the street, or some people will stop, like yourselves. Other people won't. Some people might call it in, and then what happens? What's the best way for a citizen if they see a stray dog or stray animal of some kind? What's the best way to inform the animal services unit that there's a problem or an issue, or this dog looks like it's not with its owner? What do they need to do to make sure that issue is addressed?
Well, we always say safety first.
Okay.
It is helpful to us if you can contain the dog, and somehow we can come pick it up if it's stray. But by all means, if it's not something you're comfortable with, we don't want to tell people to go out and start picking up dogs, and
Right.
and then our bite cases go up. So if they can confine it, it helps, because sometimes somebody will see it as they're driving by. Hey, I saw a dog running south, on Main Street, and then by the time we get there, it's MIA.
Right.
So if people can confine it, we can come pick it up.
Okay.
Some people it's a nice friendly dog, it jumps in your car, bring it out to us. That's a huge help. With having only 2 animal control officers, it does limit our response. So we're open 5 days a week, so we can definitely take it in.
Right.
So cats have to be confined as well in some kind of feral cat trap, or cats have 4 legs, we have 2, so we found when we try to chase them, they win.
Right.
But that's why we do ask cats be confined safely. Humane cat traps are the easiest way. Nobody has to touch them. Our staff is trained to get them out of those traps.
Right. Well, we expected to have an animal with you. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be today, but I think in the future, so many people love animals, and they love their own pets. One of the draws might be for this show to have you back with an animal,
Absolutely.
the right animal,
Yes.
and we'll interview you both and the animal as well.
Absolutely, I would love that. Yeah, that
Okay.
would be fantastic.
It's been great having you on the show, Cindy. It's been very informative about what you do and the challenges, as well as just the basic services you provide through the animal shelter. Very, very important.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.